So, I'm going to do something that the left never does. I am going to now defend somebody who I think would be a dangerous candidate and president. He is a man that I am fascinated by because of his history. I respect him as, a man, and he's going to be on this show. But I vehemently disagree with him on almost every policy he has. Except for the ones that have come lately, and that's concerning to me. But let me please defend a man who has literally called for my trial and execution as a traitor to the United States because I don't believe in his solutions to global warming. Okay? Nobody on the left ever does this. But when somebody is right, my father always taught me, you can vehemently disagree with people, but you better be willing to fight to the death for their right to say it. Because if you don't, there is no freedom of speech for you. So let me fight to the death here for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. The New York Society for Ethical Culture, just get me a bucket to vomit in just over that, canceled an event on Monday, last night, that was to have featured Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy. He was going to deliver a pro-Israel speech to a Jewish group on Tuesday evening. The group, the World's Values Network, will still host the event at another venue. However, the cancellation by the New York Society for Ethical Culture marks the latest effort by a supposedly liberal organization to marginalize Robert F. Kennedy. Now, I've come to a place in my life that I think Robert F. Kennedy Sr. could have been a pivot point in America. I really think that he's one of the better candidates. I don't have any evidence of what he would have been like as president, but I think he was one of the best candidates of my lifetime, maybe next to Ronald Reagan. So his son, who is outspoken on many things, again, I disagree with, he was now to address this group, and then they started pressuring this group after he spoke in front of Congress, and Congress tried to shut him, not the Republicans, the Democrats tried to shut Robert F. Kennedy Jr. up in a hearing about censorship. So what's happened? Well, the rabbi that runs this group said smearing Bobby Kennedy, who has voiced greater pro-Israel support than any Democratic candidate for president in decades, as an anti-Semite is disgusting and immoral. Bobby alone, among leaders of the Democratic Party, has condemned President Biden's new Iran deal, which will give billions to the murderous mullahs while they vow a second Holocaust. Absolutely true. He has praised the IDF as one of the world's most morally grounded militaries. I believe that too. He has affirmed the Jewish people as indigenous population of the Holy Land, which is absolutely true. But they canceled the event, so he is not going to speak. Robert F. Kennedy said, somehow I'm the subject to this new form of censorship, which is called targeted propaganda. Now, the natural man in me would like to say, oh, really, Bob? Now you care about targeted propaganda, which you say is the most appalling, disgusting. They take pejoratives, apply them to people to silence them. Really, Bob? Now you care? But I'm going to rise above the natural man and say, this is wrong in all cases. In cases of conservatives being smeared, called anti-Semite when they are not, called Nazis when they're not, called all kinds of names. This is the tool that has been used over and over again in history by the worst people imaginable. It was used by Mao. It was used by Stalin. It was used by Hitler. That's what fascists and killers do. This is exactly what they did in Germany to Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He was giving a speech on the Führer principle, and Hitler had the transmitter shut off. He shut that speech on radio off. Why? Because he could. Now, while I'm here, I am so sick and tired of this country not recognizing what a fascist is. A fascist is somebody who believes the state and the government should be in bed together, and the government should dictate what the businesses should be doing and should be making. And then the businesses go make that. And if they don't make that, the government puts them out of business. They'll find somebody else. This is what's happening in China, and this is what's happening now in the United States. It is called ESG. It is fascism, period. Let me tell you something else about fascism. Do you know how they got the people in the street to salute, to give the Nazi salute? How did you get everybody to salute when he really only had 30% of the population behind him at the beginning? How did you get non-Nazis to salute? You'd beat people in the streets. You'd make examples of them. You would call them, let me quote here, the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives to silence them. And then if you didn't learn your lesson, they would beat you in the streets. They would burn your buildings down. Does that sound familiar? Then they demanded absolute loyalty. If you didn't place a black square on your social feed, but no, if you didn't put a swastika in your store, you were part of the problem. Now, I have to say, I haven't said this yet, but I am so sick and tired. They marked stores. They would go and mark stores and people. Jew. They would beat and jail capitalists, religious people, or anyone who would not bow or bend the knee. Well, gee, that sounds familiar. And it started a few years ago. Look, I'll negotiate with anybody. I'll talk to anybody as long as they agree with me. Well, that's not a negotiation. These people have lied to you over and over again, and they are building a brown shirt army. Let me ask you, how many companies and how many businesses, how many store owners actually want to fly the rainbow flag? I was over in Europe the beginning of Gay Pride Month. Every store I was in, and I mean every store I was in, had a pride flag. Every building had a pride flag. Every hotel had a pride flag. I was in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and the hotel that we're staying in had a floral arrangement as a pride flag in the entryway. It was everywhere. And I thought, does everyone agree with everything the pride flag stands for? Is that true? Is everyone doing it? Or is that, hey, just leave me alone, I won't be a problem? Because that's what happened in Germany. That's what happened with Stalin. That's what happened with Mao. Just leave me alone. I won't be a problem. To hell with that, America. Are you Americans? Or have we turned into Europe? Are we jellyfish? I have nothing against homosexuals. Nothing. I have never been against gay marriage. I'm against telling churches who they must and must not marry. If my church decides to marry people, that's my church. Your church decides to marry people, that's your church. I have no place, nor does the federal government have any place in anybody's personal life, period. Period. But I have to tell you, the fires of hell and the gates of hell could open up at my front gate, and I will not fly a pride flag, period. And it has nothing to do with homosexuality. It has everything to do with politics. Everything in our society now is political. You can't talk to your friend about anything, or they will shut you down. And I don't mean them as homosexuals. I mean the political machines behind all of this. You better put a black square up on your social media, or you don't like Black Lives Matter. Therefore, you don't like black people. Therefore, you're a Nazi and need to be stopped. That's insanity. That's insanity. If you can't handle someone's opinion, if you can't, I can handle Bobby Kennedy's opinion, and he called for my death. You can't handle somebody's opinion? You have to cancel them? I got to tell you, I am proud to say when I get back into Dallas, Bobby Kennedy is one of my first guests on my podcast, and it will be perfectly gentlemanly, at least on my side. I am not looking to sabotage him. I am looking to learn from him what he actually believes. I don't want him to be president, but that's not my decision. That's your decision and the people all around you. You can't handle Bobby Kennedy speaking up for Israel. You are so afraid of speech that a guy who can barely speak terrifies you. That should say something about how weak you really are. And by the way, CMT, you're a joke. You are an absolute joke. You say you're country music television? What the hell does country music even mean? Country music, the reason why a vast majority of people in this country who like country music like it, because it is reflecting our values and our principles. Try that in a small town, and you as a company actually say, yep, that's racist. That's not racist. That is not racist. I don't care if it was a bunch of white people that came to my town and were setting it on fire. We're trying to break all of the laws. We're using the laws and our kindness against us. You go ahead and try that in a small town, white boy. You go ahead and try it in my town. We are not going to put up with it. That is not racist. But CMT, let me quote Bobby Kennedy. That is targeted propaganda to censor people. It is disgusting. It is appalling. And it is un-American.